Murfreesboro, Smyrna.
Touched by Angels, locally owned and operated in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Call Tamanika Turner, 615-877-5969, or via email touchedbyangel2018@gmail.com. They offer a wide range of handmade custom crafts from blankets to t-shirts, jewelry, tumblers, and wreaths. Also, decor for events from baby showers to weddings. If you need decor, call Touched by Angels. These shirts for Simplicity Radio, or jackets if you want to order for $25, t-shirts for $12 or $12.50. Call her. I want to see everybody walking around with these shirts for Simplicity Radio. You haven't been touched until you've been touched by this angel, Tamanika Turner, 615-877-5969, to order your shirt for Simplicity Radio broadcast.
This is Michelle Gibson with United Realty Group in South Florida, where I listen to and support Simplicity Radio with Angela Bingham. If you are looking to buy or sell real estate in the South Florida area, don't forget to contact me at 561-336-6119 or Michelle with 2 L's at the number 4 salepbc.com. You are listening to Simplicity Radio with Angela Bingham on WGNS 1450 on your dial. Stay tuned for more stimulating conversation.
Local business owners, you know how important it is to be here for your customers. I'm State Farm Agent Emerson Williams, and I run a small business in Rutherford County too. And I'm here to help you protect your small business. Call me at 615-459-2683.
Hello everybody, this is Coach Scott Oatsfall with LT360, and we are proud sponsors of Simplicity Radio with Angela Bingham. LT360 is an all-natural healthcare company specializing in getting people healthy at the cellular level while nurturing the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. We're an all-natural healthcare, so if you struggle with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or you're looking to get off your medication and change your life, then you can give us a call at 615-815-0390 or lt360.com. And again, you're listening to Simplicity Radio with my sister, woman of power and faith, Angela Bingham.
You're listening to Simplicity Sunday with your host, Angela Bingham, broadcasting live on your good neighbor station, News Radio WGNS, every Sunday from 6 until 7 p.m. Thanks for tuning into the show, and remember, 1 hour of simplicity can change your life in Jesus Christ.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome yourself to Simplicity Radio with Angie B. Yeah, that's me, Angie B. And I am so grateful that you're on the other side listening to great things to make you greater in this life. We know simplicity only means accepting the unconditional love of God. Once you accept that unconditional love, guess what? You are free to live, ladies and gentlemen, free to live. You're free to let God love on you. You love on him, number one. Number two, you're free to love on yourself. So many of us don't know how to do that. But when you get that unconditional love down in your very bones, you will know God will teach you that you are very special and wonderfully made. Then, number three, you're going to learn how to love others. And once you get that in lined up, it has to be in that order to be a win-win-win situation. And then you can walk in your planned purpose. You can do your purpose with power, passion, and unspeakable peace. And you're on your way to greatness. Stop jumping through other people's hoops. God didn't design you to jump how high. I'm gonna stop right there because some of us need to hear that. We're trying to get in other people's faces to make ourselves, go. If I network here, know your net worth, then you don't have to network so hard. Because your net worth that God has given you will enlarge your territory, and God will put you where you need to be at the right time. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you. We know this month is Black Music Month. Yay! This month is Angela Bingham's birthday. I celebrated my birthday on June 10th, which was Saturday, and I am 61 years old. I'm not ashamed to tell it because everything I didn't do in my 20s, my 60 is my new 20. Watch out the world, honey, because I'm getting ready to do great things. And to all the June babies, happy birthday. To all the ones celebrating any kind of anniversary, happy anniversary. And then there may be some that's celebrating homegoings of their loved ones. We want you to have a special time to know that there's a greater comfort, that every void in our lives can be filled. Every void in our lives can be filled. Well, and this is Juneteenth as well. We'll be celebrating that next Saturday in so many places. So many places. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the most handsome young man in the studio. When I tell you he has been graced with so much education, so much talent, and the gift to give back and to share with others. I felt it when I met him. You are amazing.
Thank you. You're
and
so
I could
kind.
tell your family loves you.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And what I want, ladies and gentlemen, get your pen, get your papers, because we're going to talk about how we can address mental health, mental awareness, mental wellness, and how did we get here, and how are we still surviving through this drama and all this trauma?
Absolutely.
Because that's what it is, isn't it?
It is.
My guest comes by the way of Dr. Michael, and we call you Dr. Mike. And Dr. Mike, I want you to share just a little bit about yourself to the world.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I come from a pretty large family. A lot of people have large families. I'm from, everyone says the Midwest, but I fight against it and say I'm from the North because I think the Midwest is the Mississippi over. But but I might be geographically challenged. But I'm from Indiana originally, and I've moved to the great state of Tennessee as well, and it's been an awesome time here.
Yes, you wear many hats.
Thank you.
Just from your bio, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to come to Simplicity. God told me when I first did the show, if somebody has a vision, then they have a voice right here
Absolutely.
at the studio, and you have an open seat to come back because we're going to schedule a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, when I say wisdom is sitting beside me, I am not sugarcoating it at all. When I tell you that I do believe that there are certain people for such a time as this to actually get in the trenches with people to say, I got you, I will support you. And then you have the wisdom, the knowledge, and you have the understanding to do it. And you have the education behind it. So let's just dive into that.
Well, thank you.
When you said Dr. Tibbs, how did you get the name Sullivan Tibbs? Because when I was reading the bio, I said, Sullivan Tibbs, I don't see, now where's the hyphen?
I can give you, it's real simple. So I have two fathers. My mother married my adopted father. My biological father passed.
Yes.
And then my mother married, and he adopted me.
Isn't that beautiful?
And gave me his last name, Tibbs. But then I also wanted to honor my biological father.
Yes.
So then I went back through the court system and added Sullivan Tibbs so I can honor both fathers.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And I could tell that both fathers have poured into you.
In various ways, yes, they did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this Juneteenth that's coming up. I understand that it's been 2 years for the holiday, the federal holiday, and just knowing some history behind Juneteenth, when I learned the history.
Yes.
And I was like, it is so vast of what we do not know.
Absolutely.
And I want to be the avenue for people to simplify that you don't have to go to the library and get it, but I want you to still study it. But if you listen, you can learn.
Absolutely.
I have this slogan, learn to listen and listen to learn. And when we do that, we can have a wealth of knowledge just by an hour show.
Absolutely. Yes.
So when you heard of Juneteenth, what went off in your imagination, your creativeness?
Well, to be honest, when I was younger, I didn't even know about Juneteenth.
Yes.
And at that time, the school systems were teaching lots of stuff, but we just didn't know about that. But as I grew older and I kept learning different things and going through undergraduate and graduate programs and stuff, I learned about a lot of different history in the United States that was kind of hidden. Mm-hmm. And Juneteenth was one. And I said, oh, my God, this is interesting. And basically, then President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, those enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, were not told that they were free until 2 years later.
Working like slaves, working to the blood, to the bone.
Absolutely. But then when they found out they were free, it was a joyous occasion. And then, trying to figure out what do we do now, what to do. But, as a social scientist, I also wondered, what were they emotionally experiencing, and then how was that emotional trauma of first being enslaved, second being emancipated 2 years later? What was that impact?
Yeah.
And then figuring out, well, what are we going to do now, because there's no one who's an overseer over us, and how we're going to take care of ourselves and our families. So it was a complex thing I was just thinking about, and I said, that's mental health.
Yes, it is.
That's trauma, and it was never addressed, and I believe that it is perpetuated down the generations to a generational trauma. And it's bringing us to the conversation that we're having now with regard to hesitation of African American, Black Americans utilizing the mental health services. But it's complex. It's not an easy, simple reason. Mm-hmm. There's multiple reasons, and I hope during this conversation we can try to unveil some of those complex issues, so that people can see that it's not just an intrinsic rebellious nature within the African American community to not go, but there's some historical basis why they don't go seek help.
That's right. And it's been so for many, many years. It has not been well addressed in our communities that it's okay
to speak on it. Absolutely.
Speak, stop the family secrets. And when, I don't know about you, but so many of us heard you don't talk out of the house.
Absolutely.
And, the secrets. I did a play one time, if these walls could talk.
Yes.
And if the walls could talk, because the people are not. I do believe our bodies are designed not to hold that kind of stress. It's heavy.
And there's science behind that shows that trauma is embedded, encoded in our DNA.
Yes.
The study of epigenetics talks about that. Epigenetics talks about how trauma can be passed through generations, and it is in our DNA, literally.
Yes. I was reading something. They were studying the brain of the African American, and it said that it's conditioned. It's etched in the brain.
Absolutely.
And I was like, wow, all of this is amazing to me. You have over 25 years invested in psychiatry.
And mental health and psychological care and all that.
Counsel.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when in your experience, do you have many African Americans coming to talk to get it out is what I say. And I know there's professional terminology and everybody used to say, go sit on somebody's couch. I just think it's more than that, because I think you have to build that relationship.
Absolutely. I think historically, when I was working direct practice in Indiana, and then when I came down here, I didn't have a lot of African Americans to seek out care.
Yes.
A lot of the reasons are mistrust of the medical field. Which is not unfounded. There's a lot of history behind that mistrust, and then that leads down to mistrust in the mental health area. Just to give a little overview, many of us knew about the Tuskegee
experiment
study.
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
And that was the longest human study that was non-therapeutic. It was over 40 years.
Wow.
And all of those men who were infected with syphilis never got the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So the misnomer, even in the black communities, that they were injected to get syphilis. No, they were already infected with syphilis, and they were told that they were going to get treatment, but the treatment never occurred. So then it impacted their significant others and the children that were born infected thereafter. So all of that was just physiological, but it also created an emotional impact and emotional damage. But a lot of people didn't know that the history was even further. I'm gonna throw a name out there: James Marion Sims, Dr. James Marion Sims. He was known as the father of gynecology in the United States back in the 19th century, but he did horrible things to enslaved people, specifically enslaved women, black women. He would experiment on their bodies.
Yes.
And the trope of the time was that black folks didn't feel pain. He would experiment on pregnant black women.
And just cut the babies out of their stomach.
Absolutely.
No anesthesia.
Absolutely. And he would also inject them with harmful chemicals to see their reactions. So when you have that history of that, and then you got the Tuskegee, which is more recent, and even in that same time, you have Henrietta Lacks.
Yes.
And you know about her.
Absolutely.
In
using
Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
Absolutely, without her permission. She went in there for cervical cancer treatment. They removed her uterus. They took her cancerous cells. But what they realized, the science realized, was that her cells had a type of mutation in it that took over other things. So it was kind of like a catalyst to change stuff. And so a lot of her cells are in treatments today, even the COVID vaccination.
Absolutely.
But when you have a history of abuse on the black body, it is not unrealistic for the black community to say, I'm not going to go to care, which is horrible and complex, because then care that they need, both physical and psychological or emotional, they won't get because of the history. So I try to speak out and say, yes, we had some horrible things that happened to us, but we can't continue to run from it, because we're going to continue to live in a horrible state.
Absolutely.
And we lose ourselves and our children and so forth.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Simplicity Radio. I am your host, Angie B., along with Dr. Mike Tibbs, Sullivan Tibbs. I want to give honor to both fathers. I love that. That touched me. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, our number here is 615 893-1450. And I want to thank everyone for using our YouTube channel to listen to us live. And you can go back and listen later. Thank you for listening 101.9 FM, 100.5 FM, and 1450 AM. I am so appreciative. I don't take it for granted at all that you have to listen in at 6 p.m. to Simplicity. We just want to simplify information so you will know how to get it and use it, utilize it, and feel good about being who you are. It doesn't matter the color skin you're in. And I wish we would get away from that.
Absolutely.
And I do believe it's a social construct. I just believe humanity is humanity.
Absolutely. I would see things, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I would watch the news, and they would say, it's an interracial this, or it's the different race. And even other social scientists like me, I'll sit and I'll cringe and say, no, the science shows us that we're 99.9999% the same. We are one race, Homo sapiens sapien, which means very wise man. There were other hominids that lived on this planet thousands and thousands of years ago, and they intermingled, they procreated.
Yes.
But they died off, and there's only one hominid species that's on this planet. We are one human race. We have different ethnicities.
Absolutely.
And we have different cultural constructs, but we are one human race.
One human race. Because I always say, when I'm a teacher by career and many other things, when I see children around, when we're talking about Martin Luther King and we're talking about history.
Yes.
And I think history is history. I don't think it should be black history, white history.
Absolutely.
I just believe history is history. Everybody has contributed something to America.
Absolutely.
All of us have.
Absolutely.
Good, bad, happy, or sad.
Absolutely.
We have done something to build this nation or to destroy it. I mean, at that other side in there. But when we talk about that, I see the black children, the white children. I see the Asians. I see all of them holding on to each other.
Absolutely.
Because they have that unconditional love.
Absolutely.
And the skin they're in does not separate them to make them prejudice.
Absolutely.
They're curious, and I love it. And I do believe somewhere that's taught in the home. And if we could get rid of all the racisms and the isms and schisms, we will make this a better place to live in.
Absolutely. And what you said was just profound, watching the children play. Love doesn't have to be taught. Hate is taught.
I believe it. Amen.
Love is intrinsic. Hate is taught.
Ladies and gentlemen, when people say something to me that's profound, I stop, I pause, because it sinks inside of my very essence of my soul, my heart,
Yes.
because I want to live that out. And then when we live that out, but they can't hear us, right? Okay. We just heard that, and I didn't know if it was. When we were coming back from Atlanta, when I tell you that rain was hog dogs, frogs.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's going to be another interruption.
And then what else do you want? Because you could bring out whatever you want in that. What is that about the brain?
Oh. When you talked about, when we were talking about the traumas in your body.
Yes.
I can talk about the hippocampus and what the brain is, and then I can talk about the 4 types of memory.
Oh, yes.
And then weave it back to how we can reach, and then you can even bring in the church too, and
Yes.
I can talk about that.
Yes. Okay, that sounds good.
They're not hearing us now.
Uh-uh.
Okay.
I hate when that is, but
Okay.
you have to do it for the weather.
I hope I'm flowing with you.
You are doing amazing.
Thank you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Simplicity Radio Talk Show, the best show in the galaxy. And with Angie B. You know those rhymes. I love it. I love alliteration. I love rhyming. I love it all. And I want you all to just understand, when you listen to Simplicity, we want you to learn, live what you learn, live it through. If you grow up with something that is not conditional and you want to get out of the tradition of what has been taught, if it's wrong, guess what? You can do it. You can change your brain.
Absolutely. We talk about the brain is put together of neurons and neural constructs, and what's so fascinating in the neuroscience world is that we can see neurotransmitters, breaking from one and reconnecting to another, and you're actually changing your neural pathway.
Yes.
So you're physiologically changing things, and with that comes emotional and thought changes with that. So you can change things by practicing different ways of thinking and being.
I like when I saw the synapses on the brain. It's like those little electrical forces, or what do you call it in the professional world?
The synapses.
The synapses.
The synapses, and it's electrical and chemical,
Yeah.
and they fire back and forth continuously. It's a wonderful, well-oiled machine that we are as humans. And when we learn more about ourselves, I think we can make consorted changes and changes that are consistent.
Yes, and that when the memories and memories can either break you or make you.
Absolutely.
And there are some memories that we need to talk about and get out of us.
Absolutely.
Because they bring that stress and de-stress the body.
Absolutely. When we talk about those memories and those painful things and those trauma, our natural tendency is to, we want to run from it.
Yes.
But I tell you, you don't run from your pain, you run through it.
You better say that again.
You don't run from your pain, you run through
it.
Because when you do that, you're going to have personal growth, because you're going to learn new ways of behaving, new ways of accepting, new ways of challenging yourself, and new ways of knowing you already had the strength. And I usually tell people most of the time, at your weakest, you are already your strongest. You just got to realize that. And just to talk back with the brain, and just to give you a little science background, I love that, you have the hippocampus, and that's located in your brain's temporal lobe. And that's where episodic memories are formed. And episodic memories are biographical memories from specific events and in our lives. So when we talk about trauma, those are autobiographical in memories that are ingrained in our hippocampus. But then there's other types of memory. There are 4 different types of memory, and we can talk about that soon.
Yes, well, I understand the front lobe, and I tell my students, I said, you have to know what's going to be next, so you have to know the consequence of what's going to happen, what to do next.
Absolutely.
And I do believe when trauma is in the brain, I don't think does that fire off?
It distorts your true cognitive nature.
I believe
because
that.
it is the antithesis to what we would call a normal track of behavior when you have that trauma that's involved in that.
Yes. So when we talk about the memory, are we talking about like short-term memory, long-term memory, and what are the memories in between that?
Oh, perfect. So we have 4 types of memories. We have the sensory memory, and that's immediate. That's initial recording of things that come into our space. It's our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. But what's fascinating... Okay.
We saw all the dust when we came in up on Broad. So where's all that dust coming from? Just all up in the air.
Kicking it all up. That's why I'm snorting now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to be prepared for the weather, and we just pray right now that you are safe, and we pray right now that God provides and make way for you in the storm, for you to get through the storm. Because I like, Dr. Tibbs, what you said. We go through it, run through. I like that.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of us don't want to face the fear. Pain hurts.
It does. It does. But through that pain comes healing.
It does.
And growth and resilience. And so, yeah, that's.
And let's continue with the memories in the brain, because when you talk about the brain, sometimes my brain, I have to stop and let my brain catch up.
Absolutely, absolutely, because it's firing really fast, and you're trying to process multiple things.
Yes,
it really is, and our consciousness is processing a certain percentage.
Yes,
but our subconscious is processing a whole lot more, and we have to make them connect at times. So the other memory, when we talked about short term, is our sensory memory is the short-term memory, and that's limited memory system, and it's involved in the retention of information. So it's stored, but it's limited. So if you had to remember a grocery list or something, that's your short-term memory. And then you have the working memory, which is constantly going on. It's operating beyond our consciousness, so to speak. It's in our subconscious, that working memory, and it stays central as a static process. And then we have a long-term memory that can be encoded and stored indefinitely.
Yes.
And that's with a healthy brain. We're not talking about those with dementia diagnoses or Alzheimer's or any traumatic brain injury or anything. This is a normal, healthy brain, where it's those structures. You got the sensory, the short-term, the working, and the long-term memory.
And when we're talking about memory, what kind of memory is it when you walk in a room and you say, what did I walk in here for? Ladies and gentlemen, is anybody on that other side? One time my sister was saying, where are my glasses? And she tore the house up and her glasses were on her head.
Right. That could be our working memory too, because sometimes we might forget because we're processing very quickly.
Yes.
But it's our working memory. It's not that something's wrong, because we live in a very complex world where we get information constantly. You got your smartphones going off. You got your smart TVs. You got the radio. You got the little iPhone, Apple Watches. Yes. You got all these different things. So your brain is processing constantly.
Wow. And I do believe, like when I go often back to my classroom, when I tell you processing quickly, but when I'm finding out the social emotional part,
absolutely
is lacking.
Yes.
Can you give a little on?
If I get where you're saying about the social part, in this day and age, in this time, is very rapid.
Yes.
You send a text message, you want that message sent prior to when you sent it before.
Right.
Did you not get my message? I sent it 2 seconds ago. Or when we send an email,
that is so true.
I'm expecting you to respond to that email I sent you yesterday, and you just sent it.
Right.
Today.
Right.
So we have to step back, and our youth are moving in this system of rapidness. So they're not taking time to think more complex about what message is being sent, how is it being received. A lot of our issues with broken communication is poor communication. The one who's presenting the information has an expectation for those who's receiving the information, but the receiver interprets it differently. So it's about the presenter to make sure that the receiver is getting the information that it really wants them to get. And that means stopping, taking time, asking probing questions. Do you understand what we just talked about? Can you repeat it back to me? And that also builds a social bond that builds a sense of togetherness and community.
And I do like that social bond, because let me tell you something. Once, and I'm just saying from the child's point of view, once a child can trust you, and like you said, you're building that relationship through probing questions and seeking that they understand what you just said, that you want them to understand, because we talk so fast these days.
Absolutely.
And we just assume that child knows what we're doing. Well, I told the child, I said, I want you to stop being sneaky. And we talk about sneaky, and I said, you need to tell Sneaky to get out of you. So he went in the mirror and said, get out of me, Sneaky. I laughed, because literally that's what I said.
Right.
But that's what he did. But I didn't mean that, like that.
Right.
So now in my teaching career and in my just being personal with everybody, did you understand what I just said? Can you repeat what I just said so we can be on the same page?
Absolutely.
I don't think we take enough time to do that, to be intentional
Absolutely.
with that.
And to weave that concept, which is so pivotal to what we were talking about, why African American community don't go to seek mental health.
Yes.
Not to mention the history, is to not feel heard or spoken to in a way that they don't receive the information. So just like that child, analogy was perfect for the African American community as adults seeking mental health. We need to make sure that who we're reaching out to, the provider, the mental health counselor, therapist, whomever, actually hears us.
Absolutely.
And that when they speak to us, they're speaking to us in a way that we receive it and that we can communicate back. Because if there's no trust based on history.
I like when you brought that out.
Right.
No trust based on history, no judgment based on history.
Correct. We won't seek it, and we will walk away from it, and we will carry those wounds. And then we will give those wounds as an unfortunate gift to our children and our children's children, because it is a gift, but it's one you want to return.
And that's a generational curse. I promise you, I think it is.
Absolutely.
When we do not walk it out in those safe spaces, and you said the safe spaces of seeking counsel,
Yes,
getting the right counsel for you.
Absolutely.
It could be Christian counseling. It could be
mental health, and I grew up in the church like many folks.
Yes.
Not just African American community, but it is pretty pronounced a lot in the African American community. But we have to recognize that the church and mental health don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can build upon one another. You can seek your spiritual health and your spiritual healing, but at the same time, you can also seek your mental health healing as well. And they can work together. They can work in tandem. But you got to, as you stated before, there's secrets. You got to speak the truth.
Yes.
And what a lot of people don't realize is when you speak a truth, you're not void of consequences. You may speak your truth. It may set you free, but that truth is going to affect some other people around you. And then that could cause other strife. So you got to recognize that when you speak your truth, you got to be prepared for the things that come around you and not take you off your trajectory to deal with the mental health. A lot of black folks in the United States, I don't live anywhere else right now, I live in the United States, have undiagnosed PTSD.
I believe that.
And it's not just from military experience. It's not just from being a first responder. It's just living in the black skin in the Americas today. And we have to recognize that, and then we need to talk about it.
We need to talk about it. We need to discuss it openly. My goal, my desire, one of my biggest desires is to have an open forum.
Absolutely.
To speak the truth.
Yes.
But also deal with other, like you said, the avenues and the consequences of speaking that truth. Because, see, speaking the truth may set you free, but it may hurt somebody else's feelings.
Absolutely.
You understand? And a lot of us, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, but you're hurting inside.
You're hurting inside.
So we have to deal with us first.
Absolutely.
Like when you're on the plane, they said, don't put the mask on somebody else first.
You
put it on yourself.
Absolutely.
So, we need to be consciously aware, be woke about what the drama and the traumas of our own lives. And like you said, we gift those things. And I'm a strong believer that before people marry, before people date, you need to find out what's all the stuff that's going on up here. Because if you mix yours with that partner and they have a lot going on, baby, you're going to have drama for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. It will be combustible. Absolutely. We really have to be honest with one another, and we have to be truthful. And
Yes.
and we can't. Another thing we talked about, social media just a little bit earlier, and all that is part of the picture, is part of the tapestry. You get messages from the media. There's a lot of negative imagery and negative caricatures and tropes about the African American community, and unfortunately sometimes we fall victim to it and self-fulfilled prophecies because we don't see something different, and that's because of a lot of things, but one of it is a trauma, a depression, a PTSD diagnosis or some sort like that. And we have to break those tropes that people say. You have one trope is the angry black woman. Well, when you do that, you disenfranchise her from other other ingratiating sentiments or feelings
Yes.
or welcoming spirit of some sort. You have them at a distance. Or the strong black woman.
I was hoping you would say that.
And that's one of the deadliest, I think, trope that can be ascribed to a black woman, because basically it says she is devoid of all emotion.
Yes.
So what is she? A robot? So we have to break that. We have to be vulnerable. But black women have been traumatized throughout centuries here in America. So it's hard for them to trust.
It really is.
Black men as well.
Yes.
All this is complex. So when we talk about mental health in the black community, it is not one simple thing. It is multi-layered, historic, and present, and they collide. And we have to address it. And we got to be emotional. We need to work on what we create as what's femininity, what's masculinity in the black community, because we're causing more damage to our people.
Yes.
And then we need to reach out and speak to someone, but we have to build that trust. And providers like me have to be able to speak to them, and let them be vulnerable and show them that it's okay to be vulnerable. I got you.
Yes.
Many of us are walking around with that inner child that is broken. And that inner child needs to be caressed, needs to be held, needs to be coddled. And we can do that, but we've been told, oh, don't do that. You got to be strong. You got to be strong. But we don't practice those emotional muscles.
Yes.
The only muscle or emotional muscle we practice is anger. That's not good enough. We need to practice, loving, compassion.
Yes.
Those are muscles.
Forgiveness.
And all that is connected to the
yeah.
brain and
Yes.
those synapses and working and rewiring our neural, conduit. But we have to practice it.
We have to practice it. When you speak of that, I have learned just on a personal level that it feels good.
Absolutely.
It feels good. It's a freedom that you can just give to yourself.
Yes.
And when you've learned to forgive, when you learn to practice love, because some people, well, why are you so happy? And it's not that I'm just happy. It's something inside of me that I have given myself permission to be me.
Yes.
And deal with the depression, deal with the things that come my way. Like you said, don't hide, don't run from it, but, go through whatever it is. Feel it. My mom would always tell us, be present.
Absolutely.
Know what's going on with you. I do believe there's a place you can be in with your own self that you even know when your body is off.
Absolutely.
Health-wise, know.
Absolutely. And then that's when we need to listen to ourselves, and run past that fear of, well, yes, historically I heard all these things at Tuskegee experiments, the Henrietta Lacks, all these things. But if your body is breaking, you need care, so you gotta go to get it. And not just if you break your bones, if your emotional stability is unstable, you have to go and seek care, and it's okay to do that. And we have to speak on it. Last year, there were many African Americans that were celebrities. A few of them committed suicide.
Yes.
There was a young lawyer, I don't remember her name, but she was in New York, and she committed suicide by leaping off a building. And then we had another entertainer who worked on, I believe, the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Yes.
Young gentleman who committed suicide, had a family. And these are young African Americans. What is going on that's causing that? And that's because they were carrying that trauma internally and did not seek help because they may have had fear of doing that. We have to break that silence sentimentality.
That's right.
And speak on it, because otherwise we're going to see more people committing suicide in the black community.
And suicide rates are on the rise.
Absolutely.
But what you said, and ladies and gentlemen, when something is going awry in your own life. I spoke with one friend, and I believe in God so strongly that when you have that impression, call someone.
Absolutely.
And so I was obedient to it, and I called a friend, and she was going through because of grief, loss of a loved one.
Yes.
And sometimes we can pray, but like you said, there's a spiritual care, and then there's a mental
Health care. Yes.
And we need to be aware that it's okay to do both.
It is okay to do both. Absolutely.
It is okay to do both. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some things, and some of you are listening right now, and you're saying, well, I don't want anybody to know. But is it the fear of not wanting somebody to know, or is it a fear of knowing who you are?
Those are good questions. And another part of it is the shame.
That's it.
Why are you having shame? And also, shame and lies rot the beholder from the inside out. So you got to let that out, and you need to take a step of faith, both metaphorically and literally, spiritually, out there, and say, I need help.
I need help. It's okay.
And it's okay to ask for it. We are not automatons. We're not robots. We are not the angry or the strong black woman or the strong and stiff of her lip black man. We need help. And black men need to learn to be vulnerable and express their feelings. And our black women in our community need to encourage that.
Absolutely.
You can't say you want a man in your life to care about you when you don't promote them to practice those emotional skills of being empathetic.
That is so true, because just this weekend I was talking to a gentleman, and there was a lady that she really, I could tell they had sparks, chemistry. But when we had trauma and we keep praying, oh Lord, send me somebody, Jesus, and when your choices could be right there in front of you,
yes.
But because of trauma that you haven't dealt with, you will look over that and miss out on the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know how to open up.
Absolutely. You're operating with an expectation for the other person, and they are unaware of the expectation you placed on them, so they are going to fail. And when they fail, they don't know, well, why are you walking away? They didn't know they had that expectation. We have to communicate. And that's the biggest thing in the black community. We have to learn that we can communicate amongst ourselves. It is a normal behavior to communicate. We need to regain that has been lost throughout time, to communicate with one another, to enrich one another, to help build up one another, support one another. Sometimes you don't have the answer. So if someone is venting or expressing their emotional vulnerability, sometimes not saying anything is okay.
Just listen.
Just listen. And then at another time, if they say something that maybe causes you a little worry, say, hey, I'm concerned about what you said. I'm going to make sure that I check on you. Is it okay that I reach out to this person, or I provide you with a mental health provider number? Please reach out to them. I'm going to check in on you again.
Yeah. See, I like what you just did, because you just taught some of us how to do it.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we have information, but we don't know how to maneuver it.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how many children I see that are just balled up with anger.
Absolutely.
And no way to express it. That it will be appropriately expressed.
Right.
Like you just taught right there. I do believe if we can have some more shows, ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Tibbs, I think some of us are going to be okay, all right, to understand that it's okay to compliment somebody as well. We were at the hotel, and a young lady that did the breakfast, Dr. Tibbs, who I like to eat. You understand? I like to eat good food.
Yes.
This breakfast was so amazing. And I said, I need to see the cook. So I began to tell her all the things. I said, oh, these potatoes, they taste like my mama's, and the way I cook. And little did I know, the next day, and we gave her tip, and big tips. And she said, I made something special for you because you made me feel good.
Absolutely.
She said, I was going through, and what you said, she said, it just lifted my spirit. And I was like, you know what, God, I didn't even know that. but I knew the food was good, and I believe in complimenting, because people, you'd be surprised how many people never hear a compliment.
Absolutely.
Something good about them.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to say thank God for my mama right now, because, you know, my mom told us, 5 girls in the family, and she called us together one day. She said, you know what? I took you all for granted when I started seeing what my other, you know, friends' children were doing. I just thought maybe you were supposed to do it because I said it.
Right.
And she said, I never had to get you out of jail. I never had to do all this. And she was crying, and we were like, what is she crying for? You know, but she let us understand. She wanted us to understand that she loved us and appreciated us just for doing the right thing. Who knew she was feeling like that? But we gave her space to talk to us.
Absolutely.
And we gave her ear to hear what she said, because this is what people do. Some people can do you wrong, and when they try to ask for forgiveness or say that I'm sorry, I apologize, the first thing comes out of our mouth, oh, that's okay. And I tell my children now, I said, no, it's not, because if it were okay, you wouldn't have complained about it. And I started teaching them how to accept apologies. I said, the child, you say, well, Miss Bingham, I apologize for not following the rules, walking in the hall. And then I will say, Jane, I accept your apology. Please don't do it again. And that's how we end up. And everybody that hears it in the school, they're like, oh. I said, because I don't want them growing up saying, oh, that's okay, meaning my feelings don't matter.
Don't matter, right.
And yes, you do matter. We all matter.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of pushes down your emotions.
It does.
And then it's going to erupt eventually. So what you're practicing is really good. You're teaching the next generation to talk, to listen, to communicate, and then that will help them hopefully seek out care when they feel they're in emotional distress, because they've already did those muscle trainings of those emotional practices to be able to go in there. And that's what we have to do. And our older citizens, it's okay.
It's okay
to come to us and ask for help. It's okay to ask for forgiveness. It's okay to move forward. It's okay to forgive yourself.
That right there, Dr. Tibbs. I do believe that's one of the hardest things for people to deal with, is forgiving self. A lot of people will forgive everyone else, and then they will ride in that guilt and that emotional shame.
Right.
And then that mental stress will come and take over.
Right. Absolutely. And I always try to encourage people in with forgive yourself in all ways. Mm-hmm. Always.
Now you need to write. When is your book coming out? Because you know what, you say these mental exercise, I guess, strategies.
Yeah.
When you just say, that's a strategy to me.
It is a concerted effort. I can talk about all the book learning that I've done.
Yes.
I can break down the diagnoses. I can give you the physiological words, salad, but it's not going to connect to a folk. Mm-hmm. And especially the Black American community, I need to speak in a way, as a Black man myself, in a way that I want to be spoken to. And I don't have to speak over them.
Absolutely.
If you're trying to reach someone, you redo your way of communicating to reach the masses.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you are listening to Simplicity Radio with your host, Angie B. Yes, that's me. And Dr. Tibbs, Dr. Mike Sullivan Tibbs. Do you still have your practice? And if you don't, do you go to different places, your churches, your schools? How can people get a hold of you, pastors? And we need you. We need this wisdom, your intelligence, and your love. I can feel it.
Oh,
you
thank
care
you.
about what you do.
I do. And I don't do direct practice right now. I do work for a federal agency.
Yes.
But I can do speaking engagements, and I've done speaking engagements at different places and churches. Mm-hmm. Recently, this past June 3rd, I did a speaking engagement at a church that was streamed live, and all over many places that those that attend that church, and the concept was on soul wounds and how it affects the women and their daughters relationships, and what we call soul wound in the mental health world would be moral injury. And a moral injury is basically something that's happening to you that goes against your moral construct of values. Now, everybody has different moral constructs.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Whatever is happening to you goes against it. Just like historically, being enslaved would go against one's moral values.
Yes.
Being beaten, being abused for centuries is going against your moral construct. So you will develop trauma.
Yes.
And so if it's unaddressed, it will continue to fester. And it will be that unfortunate gift that we give the next generation. And so when we complain, when we look at the news here in Nashville, we see carjackings, we see shootings, and every time it seems like it's young black men and women. And sometimes I shake my head and say, oh my God, this is unresolved trauma.
Unresolved.
We need to work on it. And I don't look at it as a blame game. Oh, the parents did this or they didn't do that.
Yes.
It is just unresolved trauma. How do we address it from multiple generations so we can save a community?
Absolutely.
And change those negative narratives about the community so that we can start receiving positive messages.
Yes.
Like you stated, speaking positive to the young children, it's important. And then we also have to have positive self-talk. Oftentimes we talk down to ourselves, and then we will perpetuate that. We need to wake up in the morning and talk positive. I listened to different music, and one song came out, and it just struck me from this artist, and what she talked about is called Good Morning Gorgeous. Mary J. Blige. Now, I don't really listen to a lot of different songs.
Yes.
But when I heard the message of the song, she said, I needed to tell myself that I'm this so that I can step forward. We need to do that for ourselves. That's one step at healing trauma. And that's one step at healing one's soul wounds.
Yes.
Or things like that. And then moving forward and reaching out to a provider that can reach them.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask Dr. Sullivan Tibbs to give us his information. So if you want him for a speaking engagement, if you want him to come and mentor, because sometimes we have to kind of slide it in. Slide it in because we like we said that there is a stigma in the community, but what we're going to do, we're going to make it a standard to get help.
Absolutely.
So we take the stigma away, make it a standard to get help, make it a standard to be true to you so you can live this life with a freedom. You can live this life with a peace that you can do your purpose and do it with passion. And I'm telling you, you will shine when you're not even trying because you have yourself healed and whole and made well. How can we get your information and get those? Because I know I'm giving your information to my pastor. Pastor Reverend Roland Butler III, because I tell you, church hurt is one of the worst hurts
Absolutely.
that it is.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are walking around with church hurt and blaming God, and God didn't have a thing to do with it.
Absolutely. It's good. Now, like as I stated before, I'm a federal employee, so I don't do a lot of social media, but I do have one platform, and that's LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
You can reach me through LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then I can,
and go from there. That's
Absolutely.
how we do that. We go from there. And because I can see in our school systems, I can see that so many, they're there. But like you said, it takes all of us
Absolutely.
to reach all of us.
Absolutely.
And if everybody's feet are not under the table, somebody will not be fed.
Right.
So we want everybody to show up in our community. If you see somebody that's practicing, like you said, the carjacking or little people cursing each other out, and sometimes my mouth just drops. But this is where we are.
Absolutely.
And we have to get out of our old nature, our old self, and start supporting and loving one another.
And changing that culture, which will change physiologically your neurotransmitters.
Yes.
You're going to change and restructure
Practice.
the way you do it. Absolutely, it's practice. And
you're going to have to do like a video or do something to do those trainings, like what you just said of telling myself the affirmations.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about that, ladies and gentlemen. And he's in his next book or something. I can feel it coming. We want to thank Jackson for being our producer for the hour. He makes sure we run in a supernatural, I think, a spiritual flow of excellence. And I love him. And we missed him on last Sunday, but he's back today. We want to thank Dalton for filling in. We want to thank you, Dr. Mike Sullivan Tibbs.
Thank you for bringing me on.
And it will not be your last time. This is his first time, but it will not be his last time. Ladies and gentlemen, as we say, we're not out of talk, but we are out of time. We will see you next week. God bless you, and may you have a wonderful night's sleep.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS, Murfreesboro, Smyrna. Flagship station for MTSU Sports.
This is Pastor James M. McCarroll Jr. welcoming you to the First Baptist Church Worship in the Word broadcast. First Baptist Church is located at 738 East Castle Street in the beautiful city of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It is our prayer that something will be said during this broadcast